Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and before we go to the meat and potatoes of today's video, it is Friday, and I wanted to quickly pop on here to tell you about the Love Notion Feature Friday pattern for today. It is the Whistler, which is a pullover, it's a dress, it can be a top, there's a million different variations. It's got this really cool fold over cross front that's either like a shawl collar or a hood. Jenny and I've not made this pattern yet, but Jenny and I were looking at a Free People top that has something similar to this with the hood, where it goes into the hood. I think we may use this pattern to recreate that. We were kind of thinking about how we could hack it a little bit to make it look like, anyway, the Free People. Anyway, the Whistler is on sale today. It is $5 today only. My code Whitney10 gets you an additional 10% off. So off that sale price. So if this is one you've had your eye on, today is a great time to buy it. All right, let's go get to the regular part of the video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and today we have a really fun, actually it's a sponsored video by a brand new book that just came out, and Jenny and I have been having so much fun with it, and I can't wait to tell you about it today. But the name of the book is Sewing Quilted Patchwork Jackets. This is by Ray Cumby and Carrie Emerson. They are the brains and designers behind Fit for Art Patterns. I actually know both of these women in person. They're wonderful teachers, really good pattern drafters, very knowledgeable, and just all around lovely ladies. Anyway, they just released a book, I think in December, sometime around there, for quilted patchwork jackets, which if you've been following, I mean, we've done quite a few different ones here on the channel. And just in general, what we're seeing in stores, I mean, quilted jackets and like details on jackets, it's everywhere. So anyway, I thought this was a very relevant book to kind of talk you guys through, tell you a little bit about the book if you might be interested in purchasing it for your own sewing library. And again, Jenny and I had so much fun. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about the book, why you might be interested if you're a garment sewist versus if you're a quilter, and then why you'd be interested if you do both, or why both camps might be interested. And then I'm going to talk you through some of the sewing that Jenny and I did in anticipation for this video, and how we had a lot of fun going through this book. All right, so this book, it's not your ordinary average like quilted jacket pattern. It includes two lady or women's type jackets. It has got the a longer version that, I mean, I put the collar on it and we put buttons down the front, but all of these elements are very much mix and match. So you've got like a longer version and basically a shorter version, and then you can put like a front, almost like more like a cardigan, like the front band on the front, or you can do the collar on the front. You can hem the sleeves per normal. You can bind them. It's just kind of a whole bunch of mix and match. But the basis of the two patterns are a longer pattern and a shorter pattern. And this goes from an extra small up to a 2X, I think, a 2/3X. This is a very roomy coat. So I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head what the measurements are. I'll put the measurements, what the bust measurements and hip measurements for the range are right here. But also as a bonus, it includes little kids patterns, and I will show you here in a second. We went ahead and made two little kid jackets as well. And then this is a size 2 to a size 12 for little kids. So tons of options here for base patterns. The pattern itself, very simple, easy to sew pattern. But it's not just, again, I'll get more into this about it's not just a regular pattern. Like there's some beautiful shaping in here. It's still really easy to go together. Jenny and I were very surprised how, like, I hate to use the word flattering. I hate the word flattering, but how flattering it is on the body. And I'll show you pictures here in a minute of both of us in it, just with the shaping that goes on, which again, we've made quite a few quilted jackets and that sort of thing recently. And I feel like this has some really beautiful shaping in it. Anyway, the patterns come in the book, like here at the back, where you would, I guess, like cut them out of the book and then tape them together. Or there's also a, I think it's a QR code that you can scan, or there's a website in here, which is what we did. Yeah, there's a QR code. There's a QR code in here on the pattern that'll take you to a website, and you can then have the digital pattern and print it off, which is what we did. And it doesn't even have that many pages. It's a very reasonable, like a low number of pages. And we printed off 2 two separate patterns, and then also the two separate patterns for the kids' patterns too. So anyway, goes together really, really easy. Again, the patterns themselves, so easy to assemble. There are step-by-step the detailed instructions that are in this book all the way around, very impressive. I mean, it's very detailed. And Jenny would agree. And Jenny is the newbie garment sewist, right? Like the newbie sewist. And she was even saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so good." She devoured this book. Really, really well written instructions. But what's really cool about this, not only does it walk you through how to make a quilted jacket, but this thing goes through how to do all sorts of things. How to make up your own fabric if you're not a quilter, or if you are a quilter even, different applique. There are art jackets. So how to basically, make your own fabric, how to do the quilting yourself. So let's talk a little bit first about how, if you are a garment sewist, why you might be interested in this book. It has very detailed instructions on how to basically create a quilt, like how to, put fabrics together, how to, do the actual patchwork itself, how to do art quilts. So there's like applique, that sort of thing. It talks you through how to do the actual quilting process itself, like putting, fabric, batting fabric, how to do that successfully to make your fabric for your jackets. It tells you how to test your ideas so that you're not quilting something and then having an absolute, you don't want to have you don't want to miscut anything and make something you're not going to wear because you didn't test out either, your theories or the fit or anything like that. So it walks through all of that. And again, gives you really great ideas for different types of like art jackets. Like let's say you've got a special fabric that you just absolutely love, like the print on it was beautiful. For instance, my Italian silk. So my Italian silk that has a really pretty like Italian pastoral like seams on it that I made my letter low blouse out of. If you had pieces of that, you could essentially cut out the beautiful pieces of that, applique it onto other fabrics, like really make the print stand out. Because there's some really gorgeous fabrics that are out there. The sky's the limit. You find a scarf maybe that you thrifted that you loved, or whatever that you want to cut a motif out of and do something really cool. All of the ideas and inspiration and instructions for how to do all of that are all in this book. Now, if you are a quilter, and like I already know how to quilt, I already know how to do all that. Why would you maybe want this book? There are some really easy garment fitting instructions in here. That is one thing that Ray and Carrie do really, really well with their regular pattern line is the fitting. Again, I've been blessed to be in when they've taught classes in person before. I have been fit by them into their oh gosh, they have a whole line of like base patterns, but then all the ideas for how to take like their pant pattern and do all sorts of things with it, their t-shirt pattern and take it up, their jacket pattern, all sorts of things. So they're really good at fit and explaining fit and how to, and even though these aren't like a tailored jacket, explaining how to adjust and make sure that you're getting a fit that you're comfortable in and that looks really, really great. Also, it's a very easy pattern. Like I said, very few pages to print out. And the very few pieces of the actual pattern. And I'll talk you through kind of what those are here in a second, but very, very few pieces that you're trying to keep track of as well. It's a great way for you to give new life to old projects. So both of these jackets were quilt tops that Jenny's sister had got at a garage sale for like $1 a piece and just couldn't let them sit there. So they were just the quilt top. They'd not been quilted to anything. And then the little girl jackets that we did it was one quilt. It was one quilt that we made into the jackets. But the person that made the quilt, they weren't using it. They didn't really, we were gifted the quilt by a quilter. Weren't using it, didn't know what else to do with it. So it's a great way to take, maybe you've made a quilt, but the size maybe wasn't right. And so no one's using it, or, for whatever reason, it's just not being used. It's a great way to use up some of those, give new life to some of those older projects. Also, a really great use of orphan squares. I am not a quilter, but I tell that orphan squares are a big thing where, you're trying out new blocks. I'm not saying that right, not orphan squares, orphan blocks. You're trying out maybe new different blocks or learning a new block or something like that. And so you have a whole bunch of like one-offs. It's a great way to use those and to make something really cool. a quilt top, and then just make a jacket, and then you get to wear all those orphan blocks, which I think is also really cool. And then finally, why would this be good for both camps? Great stash buster. So whether you have projects that you're wanting to breathe new life into, or you just have some really cool scraps, like I mentioned, like my Italian silk, maybe I don't have enough to do, another garment out of, but if I have some sizable scraps, what are some ways that I can do some really cool things that still give life to that fabric? Really great scraps, stash buster. In fact, when these two quilt tops that we used for these two jackets, Jenny was like, I was getting a little emotional cutting them because they're both hand done. Like they're hand sewn quilt tops. And she's like, these were probably all garments at one point, whether that was a garment that wore out and then they used it for the quilt, or it was leftover fabric from a garment that they had created. And, maybe there wasn't as much meaning as we were, attributing to these, but I think it's really cool when you can take like your favorite dress and that sort of thing and be able to put it into something else and as a little memory, like a memory quilt, but as a jacket that you can wear. It also means you can have some fun thrifting. I know that there's a big varying opinions on thrifting quilts and that sort of thing, and then cutting them up and using them for something else. I am of the camp that using it is better than it going into a landfill and never being seen again. Especially when you've got like maybe an older quilt that has like a hole in it. So this quilt top had some holes in it, like maybe a mouse had gotten to it or something. This one had some stains that we cut around, again, maybe from just where it was stored, watermarks, that kind of thing. So when there's something that can't be used as it once was, I think it's fantastic to breathe new life into it. So I am of the camp that it is better to thrift something and turn it into something usable than for it to either go to a landfill or just sit in a box or sit in a closet. So yeah, very big fan personally of that. So you can have some fun thrifting and seeing what you can find out there to turn into some really fun and beautiful jackets. Also, like I mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit more about the pattern, mix and match features. So any of the sizes, you could do, the button kind of a placket that's made here. You can bind the front. You can put a collar on it. You can do kind of the shawl collar like band. You can put buttons on this too. I mean, it walks you through so many different variations of how you can use this very simple pattern that's in 2 links, and how you can really create a whole bunch of different types of looks and jackets as well. And there is a bonus vest pattern or tutorial, I guess. It's the same pattern, but they walk you through how to turn it into a vest if you would rather have a vest, which vests are very much trending right now, as well as if maybe you just don't have enough fabric to put a sleeve on there. They walk you through how to do the vest tutorial as well. So anyway, fantastic book. I mean, this thing was brand new. And you can tell like how rigid books are when they're brand new. And already we've got like it's been worn in. Jenny and I have both on separate occasions taken this on car trips to just kind of leaf through, read through in preparation for creating our jackets and doing this video, getting familiar with the book. And you can tell, again, Jenny was very much impressed with how detailed, which I think says a lot because, again, she is a newbie sewist and is new to both the quilting and the garment sewing world. So her recognizing and being able to follow all of those really easily, I think says a lot to the book as well. Okay, let's talk about my versions. So like I mentioned, we made 4 of these. The idea was to make one for me and one for Jenny, which we did. And then we made, we just couldn't resist. We wanted to make little ones too. So one of our friends has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we were like, they're girls, 2 little sisters. And so we told her, I'm like, can we make matching jackets for your babies? She was like, of course. So anyway, so we just had to make those up too. Mostly because Jenny was a fount of resources for this entire project. Number one, her mom's a big quilter. So her mom's best friend sent quilts that said, you can cut these up, turn them into jackets. They are just in a closet. And I would rather them be turned into something else. So because of that, we made these 2, and I don't have like little kid hangers, these 2 jackets with the collar. These are the longer ones. And the sleeves are absolutely going to be rolled, but we also wanted them big enough that they could kind of wear them and not outgrow them right away, which, as you know, with little people can be an absolute chore trying to make sure that that is the case. Are these not the cutest, those? These were so these are for two little girls. This was one single quilt, obviously. And then we bought coordinating bias trim, and I put little buttons. Actually, the buttons on this one were actually buttons on the actual quilt, because there were buttons that were on the like little pinwheels and stuff on the quilt. Anyway, Jenny was given this by her mother's best friend and told, yes, cut into them. Can't wait to see what you make. So anyway, we used an existing quilt to make these up. So when you unbutton them here, you know, it's the same fabric quilted on the other side as well, because this was an actual quilt. And I will show you if I can get the buttons all undone. So it was an actual quilt. I just serged the edges on these jackets. However, there's some really great instructions in the book for different seam finishes you can do, how to like bind your seam finishes and do some really clean finishes. I did bind off the neck edge for the collared versions. That this was different, but for the collared versions on all three of the ones with collars, I did bind the neck edge. Oh my gosh, it's just the cutest little jacket, and we were very excited about making these up. So I can't wait. I will hopefully have pictures posted of the girls, and again, with thoughts that they could grow into them. So two little sisters, and so much fun. Okay, and I also have to give props. So fussy cutting. Fussy cutting. Jenny cut all of the pieces out for all four of these coats. She did it at her house. She, Jenny is, I mean, she was a research scientist before coming on board here. So she is very detail oriented. I think the fussy cutting almost put her under, but she did such a good job. And I was praising her the whole way. I'm like, you did a really excellent job of fussy cutting these pieces to where they look really cohesive once they're sewn together. Anyway, giving her lots of props. So Jenny cut all of these out. I sewed them all. Jenny did help sew on the binding here, and actually had a little bit of an accident. I've actually never done this, but she put a needle into her finger on the machine. I've actually never done that, but it was a little traumatic. That was the end of her sewing on these when she was putting the bias binding on here. So she's fine. She's fine. Everything's fine. It was a little alarming because we were sewing together in tandem. A little alarming for all parties, but she's fine. And it's one of those things that she will not get her fingers that close to the needle ever again. Anyway, and then I sewed up the rest. The adult jackets do feature bust darts, if that is something that is of concern to you. And I will walk through the, all the pieces are the same for all of these. They got a little fussy, some of these areas with these little bitty jackets. I'm just not used to sewing clothes that are this small. So anyway, props to Jenny for the cutting out, and these little jackets just turned out so stinking cute. And she used the existing edges for like the edge of the collar and for the edge of the sleeves. It's really cute. So those are the two little girl jackets. Then we'll talk about Jenny's first. So this is kind of the adult version of that little jacket. So again, we use the collar piece on this. We didn't quilt the collar. We instead just interfaced the fabric and then put it together and sewed it. I mean, I don't know why we didn't quilt it. It just seemed a little bit easier, but anyway. Like I mentioned before, those were existing quilts. Little girl jackets were existing quilts. These were quilt tops. So Jenny's sister also loves to thrift, garage sale, flea market, all the above, and had grabbed these two quilt tops at I think it was a garage sale for like $1 a piece. And again, they were kind of mangled in places and with some stains and all that kind of stuff. So she gave them to Jenny. She's like, I don't know what, I just wanted to save them. So I bought them. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, so you guys go ahead and take these. So Jenny took them, cleaned them, soaked them, all that kind of stuff. We were able to cut around the holes that were left in the quilt tops. So these are all good. But we used a quilt top, and then we bought some cream colored Kona cotton. from University of Sewing, actually, when I was down there for the shopping event in December. This was in the remnant. It was like a 3-yard roll was in their remnant bin. So it was discounted. And it was just like this off-white Kona cotton in the really wide, what is it, like 108 or 106? It's like the really wide width. So we had plenty to do these 2 jackets, but just enough, actually. I say it was, maybe it was just a regular width. Maybe it wasn't the super wide width. Anyway, we had just enough. But instead of quilting these with batting, we quilted these with flannel in between. We didn't want these quite as thick or as boxy as, you know, like the little girl quilts or coats that we made. So we did the quilt top, a layer of flannel, and then a layer of the Kona cotton. And then Jenny just went through, she roughly cut out the pieces like a big rectangle that was just a little bit bigger than each of the pattern pieces, and then quilted the pieces together first, and then went back, put the pattern piece on top, and cut out the pattern piece after it had been quilted. And she basically just went in and stitched in the ditch. And then these larger blocks, she did, I think, like a 4x4 square that she quilted. So that's how we did that for both of these. They have flannel, which is an old duvet cover of mine, flannel, and then the Kona cotton for the backing. So that's how we created the fabric for these. I just used buttons from my stash for this one, and then we did have to go buy fabric for the bias binding, and Jenny did make the bias binding. She made enough bias binding in all of these, I think, to last us from now until forever. I said, well, these are the fabrics that are going into all the shirt tail hems of all the button-up shirts from now until the end of days. We have so much bias trim. It's so lovely. Anyway, we made the size mediums on both of these. She did not cut off the hem allowance on this one at all. And the sleeve is long, but which she prefers. Like, that's kind of why she did that, because she is tall. So we just bound the edges on the sleeve, and then obviously, you know, the top edge of the collar and all down the front of the jacket. Let me show the back, because she did, again, a really great job of doing all of the pattern matching. So, and all the fussy cutting. Then for this one, we did the shorter length, and I just did the band on the front. So this reads a little bit more cardigan, I feel like, to me, which I really like. I love the colors in this. I just did a regular hem, which there's an 1.5 inch hem there. Again, I just used a serger and folded it up. And I did finish off the sleeves with the bias binding, which it's a really cool, like, plaid looking cotton that are definitely my colors. And it's so funny because this like dusty blue are Jenny's colors. So I'm like, there we go. This is the bias trim I will use, and this is the bias trim you will use on all button-up shirts from now until the end of days. And then this one, she's got a really cool back here too. Now, because of all the patchwork, it's probably going to be hard to see all the pattern pieces, but these went together so easily. So there are 2 fronts, and you cut it a little different line for the front that has the band versus the front that's like a little bit straighter in the front. So the one with the band kind of comes in like a cardigan kind of. But you've got 2 fronts, and then there's a single back that's cut on the fold. But then you have got a very interesting sleeve insertion, and this is where the shaping all comes from. So there is a side panel right here. So we've got a seam here and a seam right here, and then a seam right here, okay? So there's this little side panel that gives this shaping, and then this piece all the way up is almost like, kind of like a dolman sleeve, a little bit in the underarm, but then it's still set in here at the top. So it's a very interesting sleeve shape, but it's very comfortable. So what you do is you sew up the sleeve from like this point all the way to the end of your sleeve. And so it's in the round basically. And then you take this little section here and spread it apart, and it gets sewn to the side panel. Well, you've sewn your fronts to your back, so you have like a vest that's not closed at the sides. And then you sew up each of those sides, so it sews up that side panel and then into that sleeve piece and up over the sleeve cap and again down into that side. Which is why it was so fiddly with the girls. The women's, not a problem at all. it got really fiddly with the girls because the pieces were so much smaller and a little bit cramped in there. These sizes, they went together really, really quickly. And if you're used to working with like making American Girl doll clothes or small children's clothes, it probably wouldn't faze you at all. That's just not the normal sewing that I do. Anyway, it is because of those panels, though, that it gives really beautiful shaping right in through here. So it does not come off as a boxy jacket, which I think is a huge win. That is something that we've definitely noticed, which is fine. Boxy clothes have their time and place. But the other quilted jackets that we've worked on have been very boxy and straight through the waist. And depending on your figure or how you like to dress yourself, having some shaping in through that waist, and I don't really have a waist, but having some shaping in there to give the illusion of a waist is always a win in my book. So we were very pleasantly surprised how much we enjoyed how they looked on us once they were made up, just a very flattering line to them. So hats off to Ray and Carrie, not only for making a really detailed and easy to understand book with so many inspiration and directions and applications for how to make a quilted jacket, but also for putting in a really well-drafted pattern that, even though it's super simple, with just the sleeve, the side panel, the front, and the back, and then if you decide, a collar or the front band, it's, for being such few pieces, it's a really well-fitting pattern. So I highly recommend it just for that. Because, hey, let's say that you've made yourself now a couple of quilted jackets and, okay, I'm kind of over that. I have enough in my wardrobe. I don't need any more. You can absolutely use this pattern as is with just like a regular fabric. It doesn't have to be quilted. And just make yourself a little unlined jacket or, like a woven cardigan, basically. Very easy. Very, very easy. So anyway, there you have it. Again, the name of the book is Sewing Quilted Patchwork Jackets. And I will have a link down below if you want to grab it. You can find it on Amazon, or if you're not a big proponent of supporting the gigantic Amazon beast, you can buy it straight from Ray and Carrie as well. So we will leave that link down below. But again, if you're looking for a beautiful, just something different to do this year, if you're still trying to figure out what your res solutions are for the year, some different things you might want to try, I highly recommend. And it's a really beautiful book on top of that. So something new to add to your book library. So thank you to Ray and Carrie for sending us the book, for chatting with us about your wonderful project. And yeah, I hope if you guys grab it and do give it a go, I would love to see your versions. So tag me on social media. You can send it to me in emails. I'm sure Ray and Carrie would love to see them as well, so definitely give them a tag. All their information is in the book as well. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you get some sewing in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.